They treat the business as if the business owns their schedule. They get stuck in the employee mindset their entire life.
Label it up, neutral, or down. Like, does this task drain you? Does this task fill you up?
Most people are only aware of the rest component, which is they'll work and then they'll flop down on the couch and watch TV, but they didn't do anything to actually rejuvenate themselves. Winter is a time to rest and reflect, and the summer is for high output. My last ditch is caffeine. I save the caffeine, kind of like the break in case of emergency. Welcome to the Full Stack Podcast. I'm Mike Bledsoe. The world is changing faster than ever. The systems are collapsing, the rules are being rewritten, and certainty is disappearing. The question isn't how do we survive it? It's who do we become through it? This is your field guide for living the full stack life. Integrated, adaptive, and sovereign by design. Join the movement and gain free access to the Full Stack School community at bledsoe.life. This isn't the end of an era. It's the rise of a new kind of individual. You're not alone. You're early. Stay stacked. If this episode resonates, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
All right, let me settle down. I know you're probably excited, Mike. Big launch. How'd the Full Stack School community launch go, brother?
Went really well. I could tell what was going to go well when I was getting emails from people leading up to it, because I sent an email every day for a week leading up to it, and people were messaging back like, I want to make sure I get in on time, and how does this actually work? And you know, I wrote them back. Everyone who writes in, in response to the emails, I write them back. And yeah, I had a lot of people that were like chomping at the bit, so it was cool to see that. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is really exciting. If they're excited about it, then it makes it even easier for me to be excited about it. So, and I'm really loving school as a platform. I've used a lot of different platforms in the past, and my opinion is this seems like it's the educational center of the future. It's kind of like it's going to be the Facebook of education. So there's a really cool social component that I've been enjoying I've become more active in school in general as we're preparing to launch this. So I'm in other schools and playing around, and we have some consultants that are helping us out. So I'm inside their school, and it's fun. It's like Facebook was in the beginning is what it feels like to me. There's actual social behavior going on there. Like we're on Instagram, there's no like real social behavior or X. It's kind of like post and people get opinionated and all this. What I'm enjoying about the school platform is everyone's there cheering each other on for some type of improvement, because we're all there to learn. We're not there to argue about the BS. And so it's a really positive place to be in general. So like even if people don't join our school, you know, Full Stack, should get on the school platform in the least. There's some really good shit happening there. And the funny thing is, I never thought I'd be a big advocate for school, because I'm very, very skeptical. And I'm like, oh, this is more than just like a platform to put your courses. This is a really fun place to hang out.
Well, I find that the whole education space has been evolving in recent years, and the saying I used to always share was, don't allow schooling to get in the way of your education. I'm talking about schooling in its traditional sense, the K-2 through 12th grade and college experience, where a lot of folks rest on their laurels with that of, okay, I graduated, I got my degree, I got this thing figured out. For me, most of my education came post-school. I've read most of my books after school. I've taken courses. I've learned things that have actually had real life impacts in my life outside of school. And now, of course, referring to the platform school, there's a community of people doing that. And I can definitely see the incubator of just knowledge and the osmosis that goes through. Everyone's there with the intention of improving their lives. So they're not going to tear you down. They're going to be building you up because they're looking for the same in themselves. So such a great time to be in, where technology is really decentralizing education in a way where, okay, we can come with all of our different research, our identities, our perspectives, follow a curriculum in whichever niche you find yourself in this case, full stack, and apply that to our lives in a way to accelerate and move forward. And I don't know if you're like me, but when it comes to like a launch, you mentioned everyone sending you the emails and getting excited. I get a little bit of that excitement too. And the biggest thing I try to focus on is running through, not to, right? Because how many times does the launch happen and there's all this excitement and it's like, yeah, and it just like fizzles out, right? Like you're like, okay, that was cool. Like how'd you do that?
What I like about this, well, I've been running launches for programs since 2013. So in 2013, I remember I ran my first launch of a program. I was running Barbell Shrugged, and we put together an offer. It was called the 6-month muscle gain challenge. It was really obvious what it was. It's one of those, like, the name was not clever. It was clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, we know what this is. 6-month muscle gain challenge. We're going to see how much muscle we can put on in 6 months. So we had built an audience of people in the CrossFit space that wanted to get bigger and stronger, is what we'd gathered through our market research. So we put it together, had to, sold it out in like 24 hours and then closed the door. And then within a few weeks we limited it to 55 people because we didn't know how many people we could do. We didn't know how many members we could manage. This is 2013, before people were doing this. And so we had a Facebook group, and then we had their workouts for, I think they were like emailed to them. Like, it was crazy. And we were charging like $125 a month, which now is a bit expensive for a training program, but we had nutrition and there was a community and stuff. So maybe not so much. And so we launched this whole thing. And then a few weeks later, we decided to open it up again. But I did notice that, so we got into a rhythm where we're launching programs every 2 months. I did notice there'd be like this 2 to 3 week peak, and then it would die down. And then we'd wait till the next launch and have that happen again. And so one of the things I'm really appreciating about school is, like, the community's always open. Like, yeah, I launched it, but people trickled in today. It opened yesterday. Really pushed for people to join on day one, and people are trickling in now. And that's going to continue to happen. And so I've just witnessed so many. The difference between launching a program and launching a community is very different. Like, I also sold a lot of like consulting 90-day programs, which I still do. I don't launch them. I just work. I just let people in at 90 days. They have to sign up for 90 days at a time. And the big launch where I'm going to open the cart and then close it is great, except for it creates what you were talking about. It's like this big excitement, and then it kind of drifts off. But if I'm not selling there's a program that's involved, but my focus these days is, yes, there's going to be awesome programming in there and education, but I'm really building the community. And that's not something that's done in a single launch. We want to get a lot of people there in the beginning so that there's some chatter and so that there's some action, so that as people come in, there's something happening. But the community is really a long game play. And so no matter what happened on day one, it doesn't really matter. It's like, yeah, in 6 months. So I've consulted a lot of people that have built communities. I've built communities. And what I know is, like, 2 years down the road, this thing is, I want it to be so sticky that people just never want to leave. And so you don't really have to get a bunch of people into the community all the time if people are sticking around. And so I was just talking to a guy last week. He's running a 10,000 person community.
Nice.
He's built over like the last 5-6 years. And his retention is 100% in the first year. And I go,
wow,
whoa,
that's crazy.
That's incredible. Incredible. And so, yeah, there's some really cool stuff happening out there. People will buy the transformation. They come in to solve the problem, but they stick around for community. And so you got to do both really well. But if you can
Mhm.
nail community, then uh, you don't really have to sell as much as you may think you have to.
I see it as when my wife and I bought our first house and they were setting the grass and the soil. And when you have like fresh soil, you gotta make sure you aerate it and put the proper nutrients in the soil. That's like the launch. That's like the blast. You put it in a good environment for the seeds to catch, and then you throw all the seeds out there. And I remember the first few months, the grass started coming out and the lawn looked bleak, bro. It was not that good of a
Yeah.
lawn. And I asked the guy, I'm like, dude, what's up with my lawn? He said, well, it's going to take at least 2 years to fully set and be plush, right? I didn't know. Apparently, there's a whole science on lawn care. I had Bermuda grass. I didn't know there was strands of grass, all this. But all that to say is, over the course of the 2 years, after watering it, much like a community, after tending to it and keeping all the rowdy kids off my grass, I was officially that old man. Get off my lawn. It started to fill out, and it became full and green and plush, and it was over the course of those 2 years that it got there. But it started with the aerating, the fertilizing, and setting up that environment, which would be the launch, and then watering it over time. And when you mentioned, you know, doing launches initially with Barbell Shrugged and uh, the CrossFit community, I'm coming off of getting my butt kicked past few days, Mike, on some
Oh yeah.
CrossFit workouts, and this is
Oh, you've been
relevant to
doing
our Q and
CrossFit,
A's
huh?
today. When I say I've been doing CrossFit, I'm training for a Hyrox race, which we'll talk more about in our full stack update. But my partner, he trains CrossFit religiously. He used to be an Orange Theory trainer. He trains CrossFit. There was a partner workout that we did, and my forearms are still hurting from the kettlebell swings that we had to do. um, but it was my first dive back into CrossFit for a while. And I remember after the first AMRAP, we did two 12-minute AMRAPs. Um, and I redlined early and we're getting ready for the second one. And my partner was like, hey man, just catch your breath. Catch your breath. And I'm into the nose, out through the mouth. I'm trying to I'm trying everything I can to gather myself. But all that story to say, that's a perfect segue into our first question of whether it's a launch, the excitement, and then settling back down to baseline, whether it's a workout, redlining, and coming back down to baseline. We know that operating at our high level requires the best of us, but it's the recovery where the gains are really made. So the first question, similar to what we're speaking on, is what helps you reset from a stressful entrepreneurial life? How do you go from this launch and then settle back into your baseline? Because I imagine it took a lot of energy to pour into it in the first place.
Yeah, I skipped a couple workouts leading up to the launch to make sure everything was squared away. And worked a little bit later than I normally do. But it's you know, something you don't have to do when you're a 9 to 5er. When you're a 9 to 5er, for most people, when they're off work, they're off work, and uh, if they do a good job most of the days, then they don't get fired and they keep making their money and it's pretty stable and consistent. And as an entrepreneur, we're carrying the entire responsibility of our income and we're required to show up consistently, and how well we can show up day after day will dictate, what our financial life looks like. And so, uh, I approach entrepreneurship like I do athletics, as I was, as much more, the more I've gotten in the business, the more I treat it like training. If I put in a lot of volume on one day, I'm going to have to back it off the next day, or I might be able to stack volume for a week, but I'm going to have to back it off the next week. And so really, there's all these techniques for recovery. But then there's also rejuvenation. So you want to not just, recovery is like rest and rejuvenation, which are two different types of recovery, and both need to be present. Most people are only aware of the rest component, which is they'll work and then they'll plop down on the couch and watch TV and then go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep and then wake up and then work again. But they didn't do anything to actually rejuvenate themselves. So that's something that I've taken from athletics that also applies as a business owner. But the more, even though I put in more work than I normally would leading up to this launch, I didn't experience stress like I used to before a launch. So like the stressful entrepreneurial life doesn't really apply as much anymore. And I think that's primarily like there's a mindset shift that people have to go through when they become an entrepreneur. For most, unless you went like even if you went to college or you got out of school and became an entrepreneur, there was a little bit of this they had to deal with. But the longer you've been an employee, the more the employee mindset is installed. And the employee mindset is usually, I don't own my schedule. And so when they start working for themselves, when they start owning their own business, they treat the business as if the business owns their schedule. And that could be clients or members or patients or whatever kind of business or customers, whatever kind of business you're running. A lot of times people are treating the business and their clients like they're the boss. And so they don't actually get the experience of being their own boss. And a lot of people never graduate out of that. They get stuck in the employee mindset their entire life. And so I think it's important to own your own schedule and realize I'm the boss. I own my calendar. I own my clients. I own all of this. And what I mean by like own my clients is uh, I set I I really set up how we're going to work together. People don't come to me and say, "Hey, I want you to work with me. This is how I want to work together." Like the initiation of the relationship is totally different. I was just talking to a friend of mine who works in tech out in San Francisco, and he was uh, he was let go of his job, and he really wants to work for himself. And I was like, just become a consultant for the exact same thing. You don't have to go off and do something brand new. Just become a consultant for the same exact thing you do as an employee. But the difference is you're required to create an offer that dictates how you're going to work with the companies, and then you're shopping around to see which companies want to work with you versus the other way around. So there's a mindset shift where we get to have control over our own boundaries of our time and of our energy. And so most people, even if their parents own their own businesses, they weren't taught healthy boundaries. And because of that, internal and external boundaries, like boundaries with others and then boundaries with self. And so for me, the primary thing that allows me to be an entrepreneur with ease is I know my boundaries, and I'm not going to cross those boundaries. And like every boundary has a price tag, right? Yeah. So like, if if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Mike, I'll give you $1 million for a week of work, but I need you to work 12 hours a day," I go, "Okay." Like crossing that boundary, it's not really a boundary anymore. It's like, okay, I'm willing to give here based on that. And that usually dictates like what people will charge in their businesses, or how much money they're making will dictate like how flexible they are on their boundaries. But over time, you can demand a higher and higher amount of money for your time, and while still maintaining your boundaries. Like I've got really sweet clients right now, like financially, like pays well, and uh, no boundaries are being crossed.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that you said that because it's literally what I've focused my training curriculum on was time management. And just this past week, I was working with a client who works for himself, and one of the things I like to do is I do a time audit a little differently, where I want to also know your energy throughout the day, your ultradian rhythms, not just your circadian rhythms, your dips and peaks of energy throughout
Mm-hmm.
the day. But I also want to know the tasks that you do in a given week. And as you list them out, label it up, neutral, or down. Like, does this task drain you? Does this task fill you up? Something I want to ask a follow up on is like rest and rejuvenation. I want to put a pin in that. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to identify these tasks that fill you up, drain you, or just give you a neutral feel. And when we mapped it out, we were working together, and I'm applying his perfect week, and I'm putting down his map, and I put color coordination in the calendar. So anything that drains you, we highlight in red. Anything that fills you up, we highlight in green, and neutral's yellow. And I'm like, man, I see a lot of red for these days here. I'm like, dude, would it be advantageous to slide a little bit of green in here? Like, let's put
Yeah.
a task that fills you up, because these days are draining you. And maybe if you incorporate some of the activities you enjoy doing, incorporate some of the activities that fill you up, this will not make your day so daunting.
Yeah.
And it's almost a aha moment, because no one told him that you can do that. No one said like, yeah, you can arrange a schedule the way you want and do what you want when you want.
Yeah. Nobody grew up that way. Got to be at this class at this time, and then this class, and then this class. Whether you like the class or not, you're going to go to it, and we're going to dictate what time that class is happening. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that people, they just have a lack of awareness that they even have a choice. And I love that you're doing like not just time management, but energy management, right? Like one of the one of the things that I've tried to do over my career is how how many things in that green category can I have in my schedule, and how can I minimize that red stuff? So if it's like yellow or red, how do I get rid of that? Can I get rid of that? It may change how I do business, but
Mm-hmm.
what I found, like for where I'm sitting now, man, there's I'm trying to remember the last time I had a red activity. Like it just doesn't happen anymore. It's you get to a point, you get to where you can delegate certain things. Some things have to happen that would be a red, but you can delegate that out.
Yeah, and that's something else I train on too. Is like, okay, I'm sure you know the Eisenhower matrix. It's do, defer, delegate, delete, and that's like, if it's a red, do you want to delegate this or delete this? And again, it's the reality of, oh, okay, who, not how, someone else can do that. I want to touch on, I think this goes perfectly into the next question of how do I work at my highest function without burnout? And you mentioned before rest versus rejuvenation. And just for anybody who's not necessarily familiar with the difference between the two, I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit more, and maybe how it references this question on functioning at high capacity without burnout.
Yeah, I used to make this mistake early in my career. I remember my business partner and I we would open up our CrossFit gym at 6 a.m. and coach classes till like 9 a.m. and then we'd have an hour off, and we would sit and eat and watch South Park uh, during our time off. And it turned into like just lounging every time we had a break. Part of that was we had committed to working too many hours in a single day, so it was either on or off. And so, uh, what I do now is uh, I go for walks. Some people will, a rejuvenating activity would be painting, something where you're moving or you're being creative in some way, or you're engaged in a project or a task that is rejuvenating in nature, that's unrelated to, it needs to be unrelated to um, an achievement. It usually needs to be achievementless. Like I had a client, they're like, oh, I like to go rock climbing, but then he had set like all these rock climbing goals, And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, we're tracking metrics in the business, we're tracking numbers, we're doing all this. For something to be really rejuvenating, it has to be an activity that you thoroughly enjoy just for the purpose of doing it. And this is why art comes in really handy, is because it's kind of hard to put, art in that box of achievement. And
Mhm.
so, dancing, Saturday night I went dancing. Uh, these are things that are rejuvenating that aren't necessarily restful all the time, like energetic. Like you go, oh yeah, I'm burning calories, I'm doing all this and that. And it's like, no, there's rest and there's rejuvenation. And the rest is like, sleep, or I veg out on the couch and watch some TV, which does happen sometimes. It's not like I'm not some monk over here.
I just heard you went dancing, and I'm curious. Is I'm gonna coin hashtag Mike moves. I want to see the Mike moves, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, my wife likes them, so I think that's all that really matters. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I can find some footage of me dancing somewhere. My Ashley probably has something somewhere stashed of some video of me dancing. I'll
Yeah,
send it over.
I thoroughly enjoy dancing. I've been known to murder a few dance floors back in my day. I'm probably still wanted in 4 or 5 states, but it's it's been a minute since I last crushed a dance floor. Um, but that means so much because I was the same way in terms of my wife would be like, yeah, you don't sit down. And when I would sit down, it would be to veg out. And even then, I'm like, oh yeah, let me open up my iPad and answer some emails while watching Netflix, right? Like I think
Uh-huh.
I'm resting, but like you're
Uh-huh.
still actively doing something, and I'm not ever fully unplugging. And now it's just nature. Having a daughter will do that to you. Just she loves being outside. Nature is fantastic. Going on nature walks. We have a park right outside. We'll walk around the park. I started running, and going on runs has for me been very therapeutic. And did I tell you what I did last week when I went for a longer run than expected?
Yeah, yeah. Was it you thought you were gonna do 2 miles, but you ended up doing 4?
Well, yeah, I got to my destination and realized I had to go back, but it was
That's a good sign. You were
yeah.
doing it just for the enjoyment of doing it. Yeah.
I was running up a mountain and there were breaks in the trees. I was in the mountains of Western North Carolina, Lake Lore, hardest hit by Helene, and then you had this contrast, this beautiful mountain range and the exposed granite rock, and then you had the mud and the construction vehicles on the bottom, and it was just kind of this very beautiful scenery. And I was committed to going a little higher, seeing a better view, and at some point in time you're like, okay, crap, Uber's not going to come get me, I got to go all the way back. But that was after a day of work. I got back, I was exhausted, showered, but I felt rejuvenated after something that was so strenuous to the body. I was like, oh, I'm alive, I'm up, I'm at 'em, and I felt more focused and more complete. And that's been a way for me to reset and refocus. And the irony of it is it makes me better in my business. It makes me operate a little bit better. So I really love that. Um, we mentioned again the peaks and the valleys, and as I was trying to catch my breath in this it was a high rock simulated partner workout at a CrossFit gym, and then the next day we did a CrossFit workout. um what are the most effective ways to regulate your nervous system? Because if I'm being honest with you, Mike, my nervous system was jacked up on Sunday. Like it was like, we are not used to this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're in a place where I think a lot of times people think about regulate nervous system and they've already gone outside of their window of tolerance. Are you familiar with the window of tolerance?
No, say more.
So window of tolerance, the window can get bigger or smaller depending on how resourced you are. So if
Mm.
you're really well resourced, you're really well rested, well fed, you're happy, then you can deal with more BS, right? Like if you come in really, if you say you got 4 hours of sleep before that workout versus getting 8 hours before that workout, is your nervous system going to redline faster or slower?
Oh, faster.
You only got 4 hours of sleep. You're gonna feel it. And I can usually I do a little breathing exercise in the morning that will inform me of where my nervous system is for that day. So I get an idea of where my window of tolerance is. So if I do find myself getting agitated, I go, well, my window of tolerance is a little bit smaller. I'll wake up feeling amazing. The same thing that bothered me yesterday doesn't bother me today at all. Like I own it in that moment. And so, one thing, my first thing I try to do is, instead of regulating my nervous system, the word regulate and nervous system has bothered me for a really long time. Of like, there's something about it I don't like. Like I've got to regulate. Like I've got to control. I've got to constrict. I got to tell my nervous system to chill out. And so, right now I'm working with the word, and instead of saying I regulate my nervous system, is I honor my nervous system. And you were getting to it a little bit earlier with the rhythm, right? The ultradian, is it ultradian rhythm?
Ultradian, yeah. Yeah.
So I think about cycles. And so first off, if we honor the cycles of life, then our need to that'll make sure that our window of tolerance is really high. And so the necessity for me to regulate my nervous system because I'm experiencing overwhelm. Because that's usually when people talk about, I need to regulate myself, is like, I'm already overwhelmed. Like, good luck.
It's too late.
Good luck. Like you're trying to catch your breath. Good luck catching your breath. You're not in that type of shape yet. You know, that volume was a bit much for the system. And so I think about the circadian rhythm. So throughout the day, you know, the sun goes down, you go to sleep. If you honor the circadian rhythm, and you're going down and resting with the sun, and you're coming up with the sun, and you eat when the sun is up, and you don't eat when the sun is down, and you have those rhythms throughout the day where you can do high output, and you have those times during the day where you have low output. So, you know, if I'm having a high, my high output usually happens between like 9 and 1 in the morning. Okay, that's when I'm gonna like do the things that are most important. And between 1 and 4, 5 o'clock, it's when things are a little bit lower. That's when I'm gonna read. That's when I'm gonna go for my walk. I might check my email. My email is not a stressful task for me. It used to be when I was younger, but now it's not a big deal. And so we have like the daily cycle, with this is the circadian rhythm. So honoring that. And then again, this can only happen when you own your schedule. If you don't own your schedule, then a lot of this stuff goes out the window really quick. And then if we zoom out a little bit further from the circadian rhythm, which is a daily cycle, we can look at lunar cycles, but there's not going to be that much of a difference for men with the lunar cycle. With women, there is. With the lunar cycle, they have their, referred to as their period. And the period's not when they're bleeding. It's like the period is the cycle. And so I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on that right now, but we'll talk about seasonal cycles. So I zoom out and I think about seasonal cycles, and each season has like a different set of traits and values. Like winter is a time to rest and reflect. And if you think about winter, the circadian rhythm shifts throughout the year, right? And in the winter, you get less sunlight. So it's a time to rest and reflect. Mm-hmm. So I'm resting and reflecting in the winter. In the spring, I think about spring into action. You've been reflecting, you've been contemplating, you've been resting. Now my energy is high. So my energy in the winter is going to be lower than it is going to be in the summer or the spring or the summer. And just knowing that is so good. Like I think one of the big mistakes that happens in our culture is we treat January 1st as the new year. And the new year seasonally would really be the spring. And there's some people out there that talk about this a bit, but I spring into action in the spring. is an act of creation. If you look outdoors, everything goes from brown to green, like life is coming. That's when a lot of animals are having their offspring, so on and so forth. And so you spring into action and you start whatever creative activity you decide to start on. And the summer is for high output, lots of action. Like for me, like the summer is like early mornings, late nights, lot of output, lot of social activity. So I'll do a lot of work and a lot of socializing. You're gonna find me on the dance floor a lot in the summer. It's when we're out, having late dinners and all that. And so there's summers for high output, and then fall is the harvest. That's when we get to like calmly work. It's like, okay, most of the work is done, and now we get to calmly work. And so I try, even though we're working in the digital age, and I have artificial light around me all the time. If I can do my best to honor that seasonal cycle, again, my window of tolerance is greater. So if we only think about how do we be resourced from day to day, we're only getting a small snippet. But if we expand out and go, oh, we have the seasonal cycles. This is like, oh, it's winter. I'm not supposed to have a high output. This expectation of, it's January 1st, so it's Q1 in business. We're going to go out and crush it. Or it's, now I'm going to get in shape January 1st. I set my New Year's resolution. It's like, maybe it would serve us more to be in a more reflective state when everyone else is trying to jump into action. And I think that if you do that for a few years, then you'll start seeing yourself pull ahead from the herd. And the herd's going to be back there scrambling every year. And so, that's like the macro view that I use of honoring the nervous system. And then there's like the micro level. You want to get down, you can get down to like atoms in that case. Like what's going on with atoms? But I think about just like heart rate, your breath rate, the breath being the master lever, because it's both autonomic and voluntary. You can control your breath, even though most of the time you're breathing without having to think about it. And that's going to really dictate what's happening internally. All the stuff I was talking about before is like what's happening outside of you. Well, now what's happening inside of you? What's going on with these cycles? And so breath being like the number one thing. Like in a lot of old yogic traditions, they talk about you only have have you heard of this? There's only so many heartbeats.
Yeah.
You only have so many heartbeats. Also the idea of like you only have so many breaths. And so what is your resting heart rate? And by the way, how you're breathing in the moment is going to dictate where your heart rate is. And so I may train for an hour and hold my heart rate at 120 to 180 beats per minute or something like that. Well, I'm not going to hold 180, but I might visit it. But when I return from that, my total the amount of heartbeats I'm going to have over time is going to be down because I've been training. And so these are ways that I try to honor my nervous system. I honor my nervous system by being conscious of my breath and breathing well.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Is that how do we regulate the nervous system?
It tracks really well because I've been focusing on my breath a lot. And when you mentioned the heartbeat and the breaths, that's exactly what I was thinking of feeding back on. Was I forgot who put it to me. They said, instead of measuring your life by years, what if you measured your life by the breaths you've taken and the amount of heartbeat that you have? And I've been focusing on my breath. And remember a few weeks back, maybe last month or so, my resting heart rate was like 68. I've gotten it down to 63, Mike. we're heading in the right direction. The next goal is 59. I'm hoping to get to the low 50s here in the next few months. But yes, for me in the moment, I've done my best to focus on my breath. And in the workout, the efforts were futile. Catch your breath, regulate your heart, like you could do your best, but your body needs oxygen at that point. Lactic acid is building in my legs from the C2 bike. It's not happening. But what I've done a lot better job at is throughout the day, consciously checking in with my breath, slowing it down, and just being intentional. You put me through. There was a talk you did, a virtual talk, and you put us through a breath work practice, not so much on breathing in, breathing out, but the smoothness of the transition from
Mm-hmm.
in to out. That was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I experienced that, and that's something I tap into is just a slow, smooth in and out of my breath throughout the day to help regulate myself a little bit when it comes to the micro. When it comes to the macro, with this,
You can stop that at any time of the day and do that breath exercise and watch your window of tolerance expand. So you can train the
mm-hmm.
window of tolerance in the moment by doing that. And I actually have a 5-minute audio track that I recorded. I put into the Full Stack School. So
Boom.
it's I put music in there. I did this and I go, oh my gosh, look at it. I'm like a former meathead doing meditation tracks now. But
Look at us now.
that's right. So it's yeah, it works. It works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is perfect for the last question where it says, what systems, habits keep high performers going even on low energy days? Where, hey, I love the window of tolerance because that's something I'm going to tell my wife. I'm like, hey, babe, my window of tolerance is real little right now. You're going to have to work with me. I didn't get much sleep. But systems, habits that keep high performers going even on low energy days, whether it's that 5-minute breath work that you recorded and put in the school community or anything else we could adopt.
Yeah, the breath work is good. Doing a little bit of movement. So I remember when I had this really big switch. It used to be if I couldn't get in the gym for 2 hours, I just wouldn't do any movement at all. I wouldn't work out. Like I either had to do the whole program, it was all or nothing. And I remember feeling a lot of frustration with that. And then I started just doing warm ups. It's like, oh, it's okay if I just do the warm up. That's better than doing nothing. And I started feeling a lot better. So you know, getting 10 minutes of movement in. Everyone's got 10 minutes they can squeeze, even if it's 2 or 3 minutes of movement in. You can do some crawling or, again, I've got a whole movement sequence inside the full stack school. Um, get some sunlight. If I'm feeling like, if I'm about to have to jump into a meeting and I'm feeling like I have a drag and I can't move this meeting, I go for a quick 5-minute walk. If it's summertime, I pull my shirt off and I do a lap around the block. And I don't wear a hat. I don't wear sunglasses. I let the sun get into my eyes, and that will help shift things. I keep my meals light. I keep I eat very little during the day. I'll eat just enough to keep the hunger a little low, but a little bit of hunger is there. And then I'll use nicotine. So I use these little knick-knack mints,
There you
and
go.
those will. What I like about nicotine in the mint form, and this company is like, the problem with most nicotine is the delivery vehicles are really nasty and not good for you. But there's like essential oils, and it's pretty, it's about as healthy as you can get consuming nicotine. And then my last ditch is caffeine. Is I save the caffeine. If it's one of those things where I've got a day, like this weekend, I've got 3 days at a conference, 3 full days at a conference and a hotel. Gonna be, I'm gonna be networking. My job is to meet people and get to know them. And so, I might have a coffee, probably a matcha, because coffee is a little overwhelming. Because I don't consume hardly any caffeine, coffee feels like a lot to me now. But, um, I reserve the caffeine for. It's kind of like the break in case of emergency. It's a fantastic drug. It's amazing. I just can't use it every day, or else I'll start burning out. Quote unquote burning out. Like the end of the day, feel a little fried. So those are like some of the. Those are like the that I guess just the things that I draw upon. I'm pretty good at like my at because I've been in the practice of listening to my body for so long, and I'm really good at identifying what's actually urgent and what's not urgent. I've gotten really comfortable putting stuff off to the next day if it's not actually urgent. Um, if I'm truly feeling tired. Now, if I'm feeling tired every day and then it turns into procrastination, that's a totally different story. And that's a problem most people deal with. I don't think most people are sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in, where, like, if I put something off, it's not procrastination. It's I want to be sharp when I do that thing. I don't want to, and I haven't overwhelmed my schedule with a bunch of meaningless tasks, and I don't stay busy. So if there's nothing important and urgent on my plate and I'm feeling fatigued at all, I go do something fun and chill out.
Bump it. Yeah, that's if I'm being honest, I'll tell it myself. I'm still working on that in terms of like bumping things and pushing them down the line. I like to set things on my calendar, and I'll wake up. I was like, I gotta do this, stick to the plan. But after 2 rigorous workouts, the High Rocks simulation workout and the CrossFit workout, third day I was supposed to work out with a few buddies, but my back was a little tight from a lot of kettlebell swings, and I was a little tired. And as you mentioned, you just said it blunt and honest, like you weren't that fit yet. You weren't ready for that load. And my body was telling me 2 days later. And instead of doing the workout with my buddies that third day, I sat on the Normatec machine and recovered. And that was some improvement for Teddy, because I would have muscled through. But something you said on a previous episode was, training heavy and then getting an injury, whether it was a hamstring or anything like that. What would it do to my training for High Rocks if I pushed on that third workout and I got injured and I was out for a week and a half, right? So it was better for me to recover, listen to the body, and actually say, okay, hey, you actually got some couple days of real good working, which is why you're so exhausted now. Recover and then pick back up tomorrow and at your next opportunity. But kicking those things, again, it's not procrastinating. It's giving yourself, hey, this is not urgent, important, needs to be done by me today. We could move that to tomorrow. Because oftentimes, like you mentioned with the mindset, not only can we set our own calendar, but we also set our own deadlines. And if we don't meet the deadlines, usually it's us that knows. Like the public doesn't know that, oh man, I was supposed to write the script for my podcast today, but now I got to do it tomorrow.
I pushed the full stack school launch back, like, I think a total of 3 weeks, 3 times.
Yeah.
Every week. Every week I was like, and there was a couple moments where I was like, I got to push through. And then my wife's like, do you? I go, really? The only people that know that this thing's even happening is like you, me, and Josh. Like, my email list doesn't know, the audience doesn't know, like a few of my close friends, they heard I'm doing it. They don't care. So yeah, and again, someone could hear this, it's a warning, someone could hear this and this could be an excuse to procrastinate. You don't want that either. So you really got to learn yourself. And the thing that's coming up for me now is one of the skills to develop is to increase our awareness of time and overtime. And so I can see when I was younger, I would push through workouts that I had no business pushing through on, that led to injuries, because I wasn't able to zoom out and view time appropriately. I wasn't being realistic about time. I felt like I needed to do this workout no matter what. And then next thing I know, I'm out of the game altogether. And so it does get easier with age. Your view of time begins to change, but it's also a skill to develop, because we know people who are in their 60s who live day to day or week to week. I know people in their 20s that are planning for the next 30 years. So there was a mentor I had. He said average people think in years, extraordinary people think in decades. And so, how do I expand my awareness of time and make decisions and choices right now with a greater awareness of what's going to happen, how that's going to make an impact over time. But then there's also space.
Yeah.
How are my actions impacting, you know, myself? How is it impacting the space I'm in? Like how much can I consider what my impact is globally on how I'm behaving right now? And so that's also something to consider. But those are rabbit holes that people can get stuck in. And but it's I I've worked on consciously developing the skill of a greater awareness over time and space and how my actions right now are impacting time and space.
Yeah. And it's every single choice within the moment that ripples into the next one. What is that? The saying in love the movie Gladiator, what we do in life echoes in eternity. Yeah. And that's exactly how things start off right now. Making those decisions, one easy decision to make. If you like this episode, if you're getting a lot of value from it, check out the school community. Out now, the Full Stack School community. We're happy to chat more in there, answer your questions like we did in this episode, and continue to push forward as we work less, live fully, lead with energy, and continue to push the needle, Mike. I'm complete, brother. How about you?
Me too. Appreciate you, brother.
Catch you guys next time.